Since the 90s, Cadillac has been trying to shake off the old man image it had earned throughout its life. It did this in many ways, with various V's, Blackwings and racing programs, as well as, weirdly, a rebadged Vauxhall Omega. To that extent, I think they've succeeded. When you hear people talk about Cadillac now, it's usually about some sort of performance car, and with them entering F1 this year, it should only get better. In the early days of this attempted revolution, though, it was a bit of a rocky start. There was the aforementioned Catera, which was really a Vauxhall/Opel Omega, an unsuccessful Le Mans outing with the North Star LMP1, and that was about it. This could have been a very different story, however, if the mad-looking CN went into production. Even now, this is an attractive, relatively modern-looking machine with all its sharp edges and angles, something the Cybertruck failed to do. So just imagine how the world would have reacted in 2002 when the CN was first revealed to an astonished public. The styling was, like many cars, inspired by aircraft. More specifically, it was based on the F-22 Raptor, the most advanced fighter jet of the time. The body itself was made of equally advanced materials, with it and the chassis being made of an aerogel composite. The car also possessed an experimental 7.5-litre North Star XV12 that reportedly produced 750 horsepower and was claimed to allow the car to reach a rather rapid 217 miles an hour, up there with the hypercar elite of the time. Because you've got to remember, this was before the Veyron arrived and totally rewrote the rulebook. The engine itself was also cutting edge in other areas, featuring direct injection as well as cylinder deactivation, perfect for the owner who wants to daily their 750 horsepower road-going F-22. Now, all of this was done to celebrate Cadillac's 100th anniversary, with CN being Spanish for 100. Despite this, though, it wasn't designed in the States. It was actually designed in GM's Advanced Design Studio in England, similarly to how the GT40 was designed in the UK. This way, it ensured the CN would actually be able to go around corners. You might well think then, with all its experimental engines, advanced materials, active aero and bonkers styling, that this would just be a model meant to be displayed at some auto shows and then hidden away in a private storage facility or just simply scrapped. But no. The CN was a fully working prototype and, according to some sources, was even seriously considered for production. However, this would never come to pass as the development cost was deemed too high and the customer base too small. Thus, like many great concept cars, it was quietly mothballed in a board meeting and Cadillac never mentioned it again. The car did leave a legacy, however, most obviously in influencing Cadillac's styling direction, and this inspiration is very apparent in the XLR, although that was no hypercar. You can also see a bit of it in things like the STS and CTS, but it's not quite as apparent. There are also rumours of Cadillac making a production version of their V-Series R hypercar, which would be like a spiritual successor to the CN, but like the road-going Peugeot 9X8, that's all it is, a rumour. Like most of the cars I feature on here, I find myself wishing this car into reality, but alas, that will never be the case. In the meantime, however, if you want to see the CN, it is in the Peterson Automotive Museum, which you should visit anyway. It's one of the best in the world, if not the best. But that isn't the only early 2000s American hypercar concept I want to talk about. There is something even more insane and even closer to production than the Cadillac was. It's the Chrysler ME412, an absolutely ridiculous concept from a usually boring and sensible marque. The car was revealed only 2 years after the Cadillac in 2004, after being quickly developed the year before. Now, it was also revealed at the same place as the Cadillac, the North American International Auto Show, so there are already some parallels between the two. This first car was your run-of-the-mill show car, barely able to move under its own steam and built only to make customers think, wow, that looks really cool, time to go and buy a Chrysler Sebring. What is significantly more interesting, however, is that there was a second car built. This second car did indeed possess the mid-mounted quad-turbo V12 that gave the car its name. It was actually a heavily modified Mercedes M120 engine, as this car was born during the disastrous Daimler Chrysler era. Coupled with a carbon fibre and aluminium honeycomb tub, Ricardo DCT automatic gearbox and a carbon fibre body, this allowed the car to reach ridiculous figures. The power output was 850 brake horsepower, the 0 to 60 time was 2.9 seconds, and the top speed was claimed to be 249 miles an hour. Now, This wouldn't have just made it one of the fastest cars of the time, it would have been the fastest and most powerful production car in the world. End of story, almost no competition, until the Veyron once again changed our definition of a hypercar. It seems a bit hard to grasp really. Could you imagine the road tests of the time? The headline, Koenigsegg versus McLaren versus Bugatti versus Chrysler? Whilst these exact performance claims were never tested, the car did work and was given to journalists who concluded that it was in fact very, very fast indeed. So that makes these performance claims not as far-fetched as you may imagine. Besides, it wouldn't be the first Mercedes-engined hypercar. Unfortunately, like the CN I was talking about earlier, the ME412 never made it. Unfortunate timing got the better of it. When it was around, Daimler Chrysler were hemorrhaging funds and went into cost-cutting mode, and the supercar boom of the 2000s hadn't quite started just yet, so there wasn't really a proper market for the car. Another more unofficial reason could have been that Mercedes didn't want the ME412 to compete with or overshadow the already expensive and tumultuous SLR project, because Mercedes was definitely the more dominant of the two manufacturers in this supposedly equal pairing. This is a real shame, because while the CN looks alien with the Chrysler, the more I look at it, the more I find myself just liking it. It seems very well proportioned. But the interior, it's simply a work of art. Yes, I know it's a concept, so the thing will be more unusual or more outlandish, and if it had made it to production it probably would have been toned down a bit. But it just looks like a special place to be, and reminds me very much of a Spiker or a Pagani. However, that didn't save it from being consigned to history with the CN. Funnily enough though, the ME412 is also on display at the Peterson Automotive Museum, if you'd want to pay it a visit. And hey, if some company wants to make a recreation of it, I'd be all for it. So if you've enjoyed the video and would like to support the channel, consider leaving a like and subscribing, and hopefully have a great day or night or evening or wherever you are, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.